Hey there, welcome back. So we're going to start a new short video series about this firefighter helmet. Pretty awesome, right? Pretty cool. So here's the story. I have a friend, an old friend from high school, who works at a firefighter house, and there's a couple of firefighters who are going to be getting married. So hey, congratulations! So, my friend Dee, she asked me to make a couple of helmets for the wedding, a his and her set. So, this is the first one that's been done, and I'll put a link to the patterns in the description. And I just want to take you on a quick little show and tell here. Prop this up here. So, this is made from a utility crazy horse brown leather, and I just want to kind of show off my handiwork here for a minute. So the way this is made is the top and the bottom. So I've glued two layers of leather together in order to make the brim and the pie sections for the helmet. And so the way that you make this pattern is first you sew those pieces together in like the pie shape, and then you go back across and you add these crowns on top. So it's essentially a double layered leather. Like between this peak here and your skull, there's like probably a good like solid inch of leather there. You could almost use this thing in reality if you really work hard pressed to. So I've already made the one, and now I'm starting into the second one. And so I just wanted to give you a quick little like idea of what I'm doing here for the second one. So what I've done is I took a couple pieces of the leather, laid some glue, and set it up like this. And this is so I've had my irons on there for pretty much a whole day now. So that glue is now mostly set. And the next step is to print out the pattern, tape it down on here. And as I'm looking at this, I think I may need a little more of the double-sided leather here. And then cut it out, and then punch the holes, and then start to sew. So basically, really straightforward. You just put glue on a piece like this, lay it down, put a weight on it to let it dry, and then go from there. So I'm not going to bore you with watching me watch glue dry. You and I both have better things to do than that. But I wanted to give you a quick little step to say this is coming on the way. Alright? So, safe travels. See you in a minute. Alright, and we're back. So, these are the pieces of our firefighter helmet pattern that need to be double layered. So we got the brim and the pie pieces for the dome of the hat. And then over here in this box, I've got picked out the pieces that just need a single layer. Excuse me. So, anyone watching this who does this more often than I do, you will definitely be a little upset at the amount of like wasted space that I have on this leather possibly. And that's fine, you do you. But the way I look at it is I like to have like a wide margin on my pieces, because I'm going to do a broad cut first. I'm going to punch out the holes, and then I'm going to go back and do a finer cut. I find that if I give like a broad margin around my pieces, then that tape sticks a little bit better as I'm going through with the rotary punch. So anyway, basically, the next part is to just cut all this out, punch all the holes, and get it ready. And it's getting a little late, so we'll see how further I get before bedtime. So, see you in a minute. Alright, so it is now the next morning. Got a little bit of this done over breakfast. So, you can kind of see the game plan here. I'm just taking the rotary punch and punching out each one of these individual holes one at a time. Now, something I am doing differently this time than last time. So on this firefighter helmet, you can see the thread is like, it's almost like there's no holes there, right? So what I did with that helmet was I used the smallest setting on my rotary punch. Okay? But when I did that, at some points you're going through like 3 or 4 layers of leather. So I wound up, the holes were just a little too small and actually broke 3 different sewing needles when I was doing this helmet. So for this one, I'm doing something a little different. I'm going 1 notch up in size on my rotary punch. So what that means is the back side is going to have a fairly large hole here. The front side, it's a little bit smaller because it's a little smaller on the front than on the back. So what that's going to do is as I am sewing, it's going to give me just that little bit more room to get the needles through and with all the thread. And it'll still look really good. It'll still, like that hole is still plenty room for that thread to cover up the holes. But hopefully I'm not going to be sacrificing as many needles. I know needles are super cheap, but at the same time, it's never fun to break a needle. So anyway, you can see what I'm doing for the next couple lunch breaks. I'll see you in a bit. And we are back. Okay, so we now have our double-sided pieces all cut out and the holes all punched. And there's a couple things I wanted to show you if you ever decide to do this pattern yourself. So number one, even though we have glued our pieces together, I always like to still do, and this is like for any leather work that I'm doing, whenever I have 2 pieces glued together, I always still like to do the stitching, because take a look at this piece here. You would think because I glued it, I wouldn't need to worry about this, but I still need to do the stitching. So even if this was like a belt or anything else, even a wallet or whatever, I would always still want to do a double stitch, because that delamination is almost always going to happen when you have 2 pieces glued together, no matter how much glue you use. Now the next thing I wanted to show you is this particular pattern here. So the way that the dome of the hat is set up, you have essentially 8 pieces, and they're labeled 3L, 1L. So basically you've got the left side of the head, and then you've got the right side of the head. Now, with this pattern, you would think that these pieces would be basically the same, but they're not. So 2 right and 4 right, take a look at that. Not the same size. And then 1 is bigger. Okay? So when I made the first helmet, I did not pay attention to these numbers. And I wound up having to redo like a good 3 hours worth of work when I realized that I had them in the wrong spots, that they were not lining up. So if you are ever doing this pattern, just make sure you've got part number 1 is going to line up with part number 2. It's going to line up with part number 3, and so on. Make sure you do that, because they are different sizes, different number of stitches. Trust me, you will thank me later. Alright, so the next step is I'm just going to do a cross stitch, and when the video comes back on, you're going to see, hopefully, a nice pretty little dome. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, and we are back. So I just wanted to show something here. So I've got the dome put together for the firefighter helmet, and you can see how having that, using the holes that are just one step above on my rotary punch, made a big difference in making the stitches just go smoother. Like, I found the effort I needed to use to sew them together was just a lot less effort. And the best part is that when I go to put that that like spine that goes across the top, I'm gonna have plenty of room for that needle to fit through there. I won't be fighting it and breaking needles on me. So now the next step is putting our dome onto our brim. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm sewing it so that way the brim is on top of the dome. And this one is just a simple saddle stitch, going just a straight line saddle stitch going across. So what you got to do is just make sure that as you're going, you just pull it tight with every pass of the thread. I did not do it very tight here at the top at the start, but as you keep going, it just gets tighter and tighter. So that's the secret sauce right now, is just pull that saddle stitch tight, super tight. Make sure that you have a thread that can hold up to you pulling on it. Okay? So tonight, while I'm watching TV and putting the kids to bed, that's going to be this here. Then another evening, and we're going to be doing our brim, and then it'll be on to the top of the peak. I've got the pieces taped down over here, ready to go to get cut out. It's a matter of time. So I will see you in a minute. Okay, welcome back. So I have done a lot of work on the fireman helmet. While for you it was a blink of a second, for me it was 3 or 4 days. So what the last I had the video here, we were doing the dome into the brim, and I want to point something out here. So here you can see I used that next size up on the rotary tool for my stitching holes. But here on the brim and here on these ribs across the top of the dome, I used the smallest setting. And on our plate, our face plate that's going to go here, again, I used that smallest setting. So the reason I use the smallest setting on these pieces is because these are going to be the visible pieces that people are going to see when they look at this thing on a shelf. Not many people are going to be looking, of course the people are going to look underneath of it, but if they have these bigger holes, it's not going to look the same as the other one that had all smaller holes. And by me using the smaller hole, I'm able to keep the thread just that little bit tighter. So, but because the center part of the dome used the bigger holes, I was not fighting with it, and I actually did not break any needles when I was doing this, because I was able to do a little bit of resistance on the tiny bit, and then easy movement through the big bit. So there is a piece of wire, a hat wire that runs around the brim, so that you can, to a certain degree, flex it a little bit, and it'll kind of hold its shape a little bit. It's not perfect, but be okay. So our next step is going to be to rivet our faceplate on, and this is the part that goes across the peak. Fold that over in half, and set it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at how I did that one as a reminder so I don't mess myself up. And now I've got this thing in this complex curve shape. It's going to be really hard to rivet this, like to hammer the rivets in on my flat granite slab. But I have just the thing. I've got my travel anvil. So this is a cobbler's anvil mounted on a table legs. So what I'm going to be able to do is just put it right like that. And now I have exactly what I need. I've got just that little bit that's going to stick out. I'll be able to hold it there. And Bob's your uncle. So again, I need 2 hands to do this. So I'm going to put the phone down and I will be back in a minute once I get all this done up. And also, this absolutely should not be taken as an instruction video on how to make these firefighter helmets. I'm going to make sure that there's a link in the description to the Etsy page and the tutorial video that came with this pattern. It goes into a lot more detail about how to actually do this properly. Because I had to watch that thing a good 2 or 3 times while I was making this in order to make sure I had this all in the right spots and everything. But anyway, in a moment, I'll be back. And we are done. Okay, so I've got these riveted up. Took a little bit of finagling to get it in place here, but here we are. Pretty darn cool. So we have ourselves a matching pair of firefighter helmets, and thank you very much for watching this little video here, and I'm sure that the folks who are going to be receiving these are going to enjoy at least looking at them and trying them on. This is a lot of fun, and I will see you later.